Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Now, you may have wondered what the heck was going on. I had some videos up and then they were gone, and there's been quite a bit of time since my last presentation. Long story short, I had some technical difficulties, and all of a sudden I noticed that the mic was cutting out. Actually, my amazing boyfriend noticed the mic was cutting out. So we took those videos down, and these will be much better, and you shouldn't have that sound cutting out anymore. So last time we're talking about do you remember? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church. And we were talking about their beliefs and their different ways of life and their thoughts and all these different things. Today, we're going to start talking about a new denomination. This one is called the Seventh Day Adventists. Now, perhaps you know about them. Perhaps you've never heard of them. If it was myself, I would have been in the second. I've heard of them, but I really didn't know anything about them. And through our learning, through our videos, we're going to learn more about them together. So, if you're ready, we'll hit the intro and dive right in. So the Seventh Day Adventists actually started from many people, but its roots began during the Great Awakening. Now, if you recall, the Great Awakening was a period of time where there was the westward expansion. A lot of people were moving to the west, finding new land, trying to find new fortunes, new ways to live. And as they were searching, many people started searching also for a more personal connection with God. There were more people attending church than ever before. There were more people who had Bibles and other religious materials in their own homes. And there were people who were searching, and they didn't know necessarily what to do. There was many different religions that spurred around this time. Now, I say that it began during the Great Awakening because during this time, there was a man named William Miller, okay? He was a deist. Now, a deist is someone who believes in God, but doesn't believe that God has any connection or personal figure in the world today. So, William Miller was a deist, okay? He was a soldier in the army, and as he was experiencing war, he was in the War of 1812, he, as many do, started searching and desiring to cling to something. War, as you know, is not a pleasant time, and it tends to lead a lot of people to find ways of coping. And one way of coping is people turn to religion. They cling to something bigger than themselves to help it all make sense, help them deal with what's going on. Okay? As he is experiencing this war, and he's talking to his different troop mates, he actually becomes very interested in the Baptist faith. Actually goes as far as to convert to the Baptist faith. And then he went about studying the Bible. In particular, he was very fixated on the books of Daniel and Revelations. And there was one verse in particular that really resonated with him, and he came back to it time and time again because it was almost like he thought there was a secret code that had to mean something more than just the literal words. And that verse is actually Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. So let's just pause just a quick second and we'll get out our handy-dandy Bible, and we'll see what Daniel chapter 8, verse 14 actually says. Okay? It says, I heard the other angel answer, it will continue for 1,150 days, during which evening and morning sacrifices will not be offered. Then the temple will be restored. Okay? So, hearing this verse, resonating on this verse, this 1,150, he really thought that number has to mean something. He doesn't know what it meant, but it's got stuck in his craw. He just kept thinking about it, and he knew it had to mean something. So he actually concluded, after all of his studies and all of his thoughts, that 1,150 days, that actually was indicating that Jesus Christ was going to return. And he was going to return on a specific date. Now, the calculations were slightly off, so he had a date range. But he said that Jesus was going to return between March 21st, 1843, and March 21st, 1844. Now, if somebody said Jesus is coming back, everybody in the area is very big into religion right now, having that personal connection with God. A lot of people are believing in Jesus and searching for that connection with Jesus. If you find out that Jesus is coming and this is something that you believe in, and it's no longer a figment of, okay, this is going to happen somewhere in the future. No, it's going to happen like 2 months from now. That got a lot of people's attention. A lot of people's attention. As he spread his message, it was 1831. So not that far off. It was 12 years, still close enough that people paid attention. People thought, okay, I've got a little bit of time. I better hurry up and do this. As he's spreading his message and spreading his ideas, people are quickly flocking to him. He's emerging as a leader of a whole new movement of people who are hearing William Miller's ideas regarding this new timeline and when Jesus is coming back. And these people that followed him and really listened to his words actually started to be called Millerists, because they were people who followed what William Miller said. Now, what happened on that day during that time period? I hate to ruin the surprise, but Jesus did not come back. The world was not resurrected. It was not the end of times that William Miller was predicting. What did happen was there was a comet. However, the comet, when it appeared in March of 1843, did not bring about the second coming as was predicted. Now, Miller sharing his story widely, broadly, proudly, seeing that date that he had hung his hopes on had passed, was mortified and embarrassed on a whole new level. He essentially confessed that he was wrong. He was humiliated. He was so disappointed in himself. And he left the movement. He left the movement by the end of 1843. This devastated him to his core, and is very likely one of the reasons that he died shortly thereafter. He actually died in 1849. So, what about those people who were following him and had all these great ideas? The Millerists, they were called, remember. They were not as quick to give up on William Miller's ideas on that Jesus was coming and there was a set time and date and everybody could figure it out. These Millerists they would change the calculations slightly, or be like, oh, I misinterpreted this, or this means this, or they had all these different configurations. There were multiple different dates that were discussed and calculations that differed, and there were tons of different dates, one of which was made by a man named Samuel Snow. He said, oh, actually his calculations were wrong, and it's actually going to happen on October 22nd, 1844. Spoiler alert, it did not happen on October 22nd, 1844. Then a person named Ellen Harmon White, she suggested that actually there was a misreading and a miscalculation in the numbers and the interpretation of the phrases, and what was actually happening was not that date was going to be when God or Jesus came back down to earth. It was when God and Jesus had begun cleansing of the heavenly sanctuary, is what they call it. Basically, God is beginning to review all the names in the book of life. And they believe that this started in 1844. God is reviewing all the names in the book of life, reviewing everything that they did. Were they good people? Were they bad people? Their actions, everything like that. And it's only after God reviews all the different names that Jesus is going to appear. That there's no set date, but it is imminent because it's the step right before Jesus is coming, happening right now. They believe that God is reviewing the book of life, and after he's done, that's when Jesus will come. So you can't rush God. They don't have a time or date on it, but they know that that's the next thing to come, or that's what they believe, I should say. So this repeated, as the Millerites kept on making these dates and they didn't actually happen, it led to what was known as the Great Disappointment. Yes, people left, but people also stayed. And Ellen Harmon White, when she said that idea of, well, no, it's not actually that Jesus is coming back on this day, it's that God is reviewing the book of life, that tended to bring more people back or keep people from leaving. Because why would someone, if you have 15 predictions of this is going to be the end of the world and they all fail, I don't know why people would continue to stay if all the calculations continue to be wrong. Just my personal thought. At some point you have to kind of wonder what's going on, and perhaps this isn't the right place. But Ellen, because she changed that it wasn't an actual date, it was this stage, a lot of people stayed because that made sense and it resonated with them. So that's the big change that happened when they switched from it's not an actual date, it's this concept that Jesus is coming, God is preparing, he's reviewing the book of life, and then Jesus will come. They started to loosely form. The Millerites changed from following more of a William Miller's idea, where there's a specific date, to forming a loose organization known as the Evangelical Adventists. So they are saying the good things about Jesus, telling other people about Jesus, because there is an event coming and they need people to know about it. Okay? So this group did many different things. The first thing they did was, a lot of Christians observe their holy day or their worship day on Sundays. Okay? What they did is they actually move it back to Saturdays. They say Saturdays is the Sabbath, and that Christ's return is imminent. And it was those two things in particular that they did to set themselves apart from other Christian denominations. They believe that Christ's return is imminent. Again, it's going to happen. There is a date. We don't know the date, but it's going to be sooner rather than later. The second thing they did is they moved their worship day from Sunday to Saturday. This was finalized and organized on May 21st, 1863, when the members of that loosely organized group of evangelical Adventists formed and adopted a legal title of the Seventh Day Adventists. They are passionate about many social justice issues. They are passionate about the liberation of slavery during that time. Slavery was a hot button topic. They were very instrumental, particularly in spreading awareness about the treatment of slaves, and they did a lot of work, particularly in the Underground Railroad, trying to help slaves who were newly freed find security, find safety, find a way of life in this new life that they were embarking on. They tried to really help them and guide them and make them feel supported in this new endeavor. They also were very passionate about the idea of compulsory military service. They didn't have a problem necessarily with the military. They were very strong supporters of the military. They knew that had to happen in order to keep people safe. However, they were very much against the confrontation of war. So, with the formal adoption of the Seventh Day Adventists, they pushed for this, and it was really pretty quickly because they wanted a little bit of government assurance, government protection. They have a way of working in, everybody has to be part of the draft, but they were able to work under the religious exemption, where if a male is called up for compulsory military service, they were allowed, if they were Seventh-day Adventists, they still had to serve, but they were allowed to be in non-combat positions. So it was that little bit of protection from the government. And that's why they moved so quickly. They wanted to get that protection in because things were changing very quickly in their world, and they wanted to give their members that protection. So, interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, the first official leaders of the Seventh-day Adventists are three of them. Officially, it's Ellen White, or Ellen Harmon White, that person who said, well, no, it's not actually a date that Jesus is coming. It's God has entered into the final stages and he's reviewing the book of life, and then Jesus will come. So it's Ellen White, her husband, James White, and then this other man named Joseph Bates, who was really just a passionate presenter. He was from a different denomination, and then he changed to Seventh-day Adventist because he really believed in the close return of Jesus. And that's just what he did. So he changed from his other denomination to the Seventh-day Adventists. Now you may say, well, why did he change so easily? In Christianity, particularly the Protestant movements, people seem to change denominations with not much difficulty. It's relatively easy to move from one Protestant denomination to another. You might have to take a couple of classes or meet with the pastor, but typically if you're Protestant, you're most times welcomed in any other Protestant denomination. So it's just a thing that fit better for him and his lifestyle and his beliefs, so he changed to the Seventh-day Adventists. So again, people thought that Miller's date was correct, but they changed. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups a little bit. But they changed it, that it wasn't necessarily a geographical second coming. It was more of that metaphorical second coming. Okay? They also changed a little bit that it's not that Jesus is coming to earth. It's that Jesus or God is entering what's known as the tabernacle of heaven. That's where he's reviewing the book of life and reviewing all the different names. Okay, they believe that this second phase did start when William Miller predicted it would. They do believe that it started in 1844. And they call the stage the investigative judgment. So they believe that when God and Jesus are reviewing this book of life, they're, again, investigating all these different people. What good acts did they do? What not so good acts did they do? How were they as a person? How did they treat other people? All these different things. They're investigating it. This investigative judgment, they believe, is very important. And they believe that anything that happens, there's always going to be investigation that occurs before the next big thing. That God won't do anything just suddenly. There's going to be some tells or some investigations that happen first. So they call this investigative judgment. Okay. They believe that, again, Jesus Christ's second coming is going to happen as soon as this investigative judgment, the reviewing of the book of life, is completed. Now, Ellen White is one of the main leaders, one of the main founders of this religion. They are also an individual who claims to have had visions from God. They have become a prolific writer, and they have produced more than 5,000 magazine articles and 40 books. Okay, so the Seventh-day Adventists believe that there are many gifts that God shares with each person. Okay, everybody has their own thing that makes them special. And one of the things that could make you special is being a prophet. They believe that Ellen White had this gift of visions. She was on a prophetess level. She was getting these visions from God, and she would have these messages. Now, she was a woman. She was not necessarily, at this time, women couldn't be published by themselves typically. They couldn't go on speaking engagements by themselves typically. So she did a lot of speaking and talking through her husband, who encouraged her and supported her in all of her reflections. So that's what she did. Very important person, Ellen White. Very important. Today, the Seventh-day Adventists, now this surprised me. Today, they have more than 19 million followers. Over 200 countries. So 19 million followers. That's a lot of people. It was interesting to me, however, because less than 10% of the total Seventh-day Adventist population actually resides in the United States. They are very big about social justice, social injustice, standing up for the rights for others, telling people, going out and doing all these different things. So most of their members are not in the U.S. They have members on every single continent, with the exception of Antarctica in the world. Seventh-day Adventists are everywhere. There are little communities all over. And there are lots of websites you can go to find out where these people would be. Now, you may be wondering, okay, well, what do they believe, or how do they live their life? What makes them different? We've just covered the history. You possibly can't be stopping now. I am, basically, because you and I both know that sometimes you just need a break. So don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed hearing about the history, and hit that subscribe button, because in our next video, which will be coming out shortly, you will get to learn all about what the Seventh-day Adventists believe, their belief systems. It's going to be a good one, I promise. So don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe. And thank you so very much for joining me today. I greatly enjoy learning with you. And remember, the more you know, the more you grow. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.